The first thing Daniel saw was his wife's hand beneath the wreckage. The second thing he saw was the man wearing her wedding ring. And the third thing he heard was the police officer whisper, "Sir, your wife was never in that car." If stories like this touch something inside you, subscribe, like this video, and tell us where you're watching from before we begin. Because by the time Daniel learned who had sent that ring, he had already buried the wrong woman. Rain hammered the windshield as Daniel Mercer drove toward the mountain road, gripping the steering wheel so tightly his knuckles had gone white. The call had come at 2:13 in the morning. A crash. A vehicle registered to his wife. No identification yet. Mara had left their house 40 minutes earlier after an argument so small it should never have mattered. That was what Daniel kept telling himself. It had started with a suitcase. "You're leaving?" he had asked from the kitchen doorway. Mara stood beside the hallway closet, holding a black overnight bag. Her face was pale, but not surprised. "I need air." "Then say that. Don't pack like you're disappearing." Her fingers tightened around the handle. "Maybe disappearing is the only way you'll notice I'm gone." Daniel had laughed, but there had been no humor in it. What does that even mean? She looked at him for several seconds, as though deciding whether he was worth the truth. "Ask your brother where he was last Thursday." Then she walked out. At the crash site, flames crawled across the crushed sedan. A guardrail had been ripped open, and the car had fallen halfway down a ravine. Rescue workers moved through smoke and mud while a helicopter circled above the trees. Daniel stumbled toward the wreck until a police officer grabbed his chest. "Stay back." "That's my wife." "We don't know that yet." But Daniel had already seen the hand. A woman's hand. Thin fingers. Red nail polish. A silver band reflecting the firelight. Mara's ring. The officer's expression changed. He glanced toward the car, then back at Daniel. "Sir, the victim appears to be a woman, but there's no wedding ring on the body." Daniel looked again. The ring was gone. By dawn, the authorities had recovered the body. The face was badly burned. The clothing matched what Mara had been wearing. The car was hers. Her purse was inside. Her driver's license had melted near the pedals. Everything pointed to Mara. Everything except the ring. Daniel buried the unidentified woman 6 days later. When the priest asked Daniel to speak, he couldn't. He stared at the coffin and remembered Mara's last words. "Maybe disappearing is the only way you'll notice I'm gone." The shovel struck the earth. He asked the detective about it twice. "Maybe it came off during the impact," Detective Lena Ortiz said. "Mara never took it off." "People say that about wedding rings." "She wore it in the shower. She wore it while gardening. She wore it when we went swimming." Ortiz studied him. "Then perhaps someone removed it afterward." Daniel's stomach turned. "Are you saying someone was there?" "I'm saying grief makes people look for patterns. Sometimes the pattern is real. Sometimes it's just pain trying to explain itself." The case was closed. Then, on the 93rd night after the funeral, someone knocked on Daniel's door. Not rang the bell. Knocked. 3 slow taps. A small cardboard box rested on the porch. Inside, wrapped in a damp piece of cloth, was Mara's wedding ring. Daniel dropped the poker. The ring rolled across the floor and stopped against the wall. For several seconds, he simply stared at it. Then he crawled toward it, picked it up, and pressed it to his lips. There was something carved into the inside of the band. He had never seen it before. R17. His hands began to shake. A folded note lay beneath the cloth. She is alive. Daniel stopped breathing. The next line was written in black ink. But if you want her back, do not trust the man who helped you bury her. Daniel read it 3 times. Then he called Mara's number. The phone rang once, twice. On the 3rd ring, someone answered. At 8 in the morning, Victor arrived without calling. His brother walked in carrying coffee and a paper bag from the bakery Mara used to love. He looked exhausted, but his eyes were clear. "Daniel," he said carefully, "you need to eat." Daniel closed his fist around the ring. "Where were you last Thursday?" Victor stopped. The question hung between them. "Why are you asking me that?" "Mara told me to." For the first time since the funeral, Victor looked afraid. Then the fear vanished. She was grieving too, Daniel. She didn't know what she was saying. She said I should ask you. About what? R17. Victor's coffee cup slipped from his hand and shattered on the floor. Daniel watched his brother's face drain of color. "What is R17?" he asked. Victor didn't answer. He backed toward the door. Daniel stepped in front of it. "Tell me." Victor's voice dropped. "You should have let her go." A car screeched outside. By the time Daniel turned to look through the window, Victor had already run. That afternoon, Daniel searched public records for R17. The first result appeared in an old property file. Ridgeway Storage Facility, Unit 17. The manager, an elderly man named Mr. Bell, recognized Mara's name. "She rented a unit 2 months before the accident," he said. "Did she come alone?" "Usually. Sometimes with a man." "What man?" Bell frowned. "Your brother." Inside, the room was almost empty. A metal chair, a broken lamp, 3 cardboard boxes. On the wall, someone had painted a red line from floor to ceiling. The first box contained photographs. Mara standing outside a courthouse. Mara meeting an unknown woman in a hospital parking lot. Mara arguing with Victor beside a black SUV. And one picture that made Daniel's knees weaken. It showed Mara sitting in a restaurant across from a man Daniel recognized immediately. Daniel himself. But the photograph had been taken 3 weeks before their wedding, when he and Mara had supposedly never met. He turned it over. On the back, Mara had written, "He remembers everything. He just doesn't know it yet." The second box contained a stack of medical records. The name on them was not Mara Mercer. It was Evelyn Cole. A missing woman reported dead in a house fire 12 years earlier. Evelyn Cole had been the financial director of the company where Daniel and Victor's father had worked. She had accused the company of stealing millions from its employees' pension fund. Before she could testify, her house burned down. Her body was never found. The case had gone cold. Daniel read the records again, his vision trembling. The final document was a DNA report. Evelyn Cole was Mara Mercer's biological mother. A noise came from outside the storage unit. Daniel turned off the lamp. Footsteps crossed the gravel. A shadow stopped beneath the door. Then a key slid into the lock. Daniel gripped the tire iron. The door began to rise. "You could have killed me," she hissed. "You knew." "I knew enough to be scared." "Is Mara alive?" Ortiz pushed herself upright. If she were dead, you wouldn't have received the ring. Who sent it? I don't know. Don't lie to me. I'm not lying. But I know who took her. Daniel's grip tightened. Who? Ortiz looked at the photographs. Your father's old partner. A man named Samuel Voss. Why would he take Mara? Because Mara spent the last 2 years proving he caused the fire that killed her mother. Daniel felt something inside him split open. Why didn't you tell me? Because I thought you were involved. Involved in what? Ortiz reached into her coat and removed a photograph. It showed Daniel in a parking garage, handing a folder to Samuel Voss. She told him about the head injury. 10 years earlier, Daniel had been in a car accident with Victor. Daniel survived with a concussion and weeks of missing memory. Victor told everyone Daniel had been driving. Daniel believed him. But according to Mara's investigation, the accident had happened after Daniel discovered that Victor and Samuel had been moving stolen pension money through shell companies. Daniel hadn't forgotten a random night. He had forgotten the night that could destroy them. Why marry me? Daniel asked, his voice breaking. If she knew all this, why marry me? Because she loved you, Ortiz said. And because she believed the memories would return. A gunshot cracked outside. The metal wall behind Ortiz sparked. She dragged Daniel down as a second bullet tore through the doorway. Someone followed me, she whispered. They crawled behind the boxes. A man entered the storage unit with a pistol and a flashlight. Daniel saw the wedding ring on the floor near the red line. The intruder's light passed over it. Daniel grabbed the ring and threw it toward the far corner. The man turned. Ortiz fired first. The intruder fled, leaving blood on the concrete. Ortiz ran to the doorway, but stopped when she saw the black SUV disappearing beyond the factory. Voss, she said. Daniel looked at the ring in his palm. A tiny red stone was set inside the band, hidden beneath the metal engraving. Ortiz's face changed. That's not a stone. What is it? A tracking beacon. His phone buzzed. A video had been sent from an unknown number. Daniel pressed play. Mara sat in a dim room, her face bruised, one side of her hair cut unevenly. She was tied to a chair. Behind her stood Samuel Voss. He looked older than Daniel remembered, but his voice was calm. Daniel, you have something that belongs to me. Mara lifted her eyes toward the camera. Her lips moved silently. Don't come. Voss placed a hand on her shoulder. Bring the ring to the old Mercer textile mill by midnight. Come alone. If you contact the police, she dies. The video ended. Daniel looked at the screen where Mara's frozen face remained. I spent 3 months believing she was dead, he said. I'm not spending another minute waiting for permission to save her. Daniel entered through the loading door. Mara! A light flickered on above the machinery. Mara was tied to a chair in the center of the floor. Victor stood behind her. Daniel stopped. His brother's pistol was pressed against Mara's temple. Hello, little brother, Victor said. Mara shook her head violently. Daniel looked at Victor. You told me to let her go. I was trying to protect you. You helped fake her death, Victor swallowed. I helped her disappear. By putting another woman in her car? Victor's eyes dropped. The silence answered for him. Daniel felt sick. You killed someone. It wasn't supposed to happen. Who was she? Evelyn. Mara screamed through the cloth tied around her mouth. Victor ripped it away. "She was alive when we took her from the road," he said. "Voss wanted the evidence she had. Your wife found us. She tried to stop him." Mara's voice was raw. "He's lying." Victor struck her across the face. Daniel stepped forward. "Touch her again and I'll tear you apart." Victor laughed bitterly. "There he is." "What does that mean?" "The old Daniel, the one who remembers." A sharp pain flashed behind Daniel's eyes. Suddenly, the mill changed. He saw himself standing beside a burning office, heard his father shouting, saw Victor holding a ledger, saw Samuel Voss pointing a gun at Evelyn Cole. Then Mara's mother running. A gunshot. And Victor had hit him with a metal pipe before the crash erased the night. Daniel staggered. Mara stared at him. "You remember?" He looked at Victor. "You told me I was driving." Victor's face collapsed. "I was scared." "You let me believe I killed us." "You would have gone to prison." "You let me mourn a stranger while Mara was tortured." Victor's eyes filled with tears, but his gun did not move. "I loved you." "No," Daniel said. "You loved what I could be used for." A slow clap came from the upper walkway. Samuel Voss stepped into the light. He had been listening. "You always were dramatic, Daniel." Mara's shoulders stiffened. Voss descended the metal stairs, carrying a leather briefcase. "Where is the ledger?" he asked. Daniel said nothing. Voss smiled. "Your wife found copies of the pension records. She hid them somewhere only you could locate. That is why she married you. That is why I allowed her to remain alive." Daniel looked at Mara. Her eyes filled with shame. "You used me," he whispered. "At first," she said. "Not at the end. Give me the ring." Daniel removed it slowly. Voss's gaze fixed on the band. "Put it on the table." Daniel walked toward him. Every step felt like walking through water. He placed the ring on the table beside the briefcase. Voss reached for it. Daniel slammed his hand onto the ring and twisted the small hidden beacon beneath his thumb. A red light blinked. Somewhere outside, Ortiz's team received the signal. Voss's smile vanished. "You brought someone." Victor raised his pistol toward Daniel. Mara kicked the chair sideways. It crashed into Victor's knees. The gun fired, shattering a window overhead. Daniel lunged at Victor. They hit the floor together. Victor punched him once, twice. Daniel tasted blood. For a moment, the old fear returned, the belief that his brother was stronger, smarter, untouchable. Then Daniel remembered Mara, lying in the wreckage of a life Victor had built around him. He struck back. Victor's gun skidded across the floor. Voss grabbed Mara by the hair and dragged her toward the stairs. "Move!" he snarled. Daniel turned. Mara looked at him, terrified but steady. "Daniel, don't choose me!" Voss held Mara at the edge of the upper platform. "Pick one," he called. "Your wife or your revenge?" Daniel looked at the red light on the ring. Then he looked at Victor. His brother was crawling toward the gun. Daniel kicked it away. "You want the ledger?" Daniel shouted at Voss. "It's not here!" Voss tightened his grip on Mara. "Where is it?" "In the place you never searched." Voss's eyes narrowed. "The cemetery." Victor froze. Daniel continued. Under the grave you made for Evelyn. Voss's attention shifted for half a second. That was enough. Mara drove her head backward into his face. Voss staggered. Daniel ran up the stairs as Mara slipped over the railing. He caught her wrist. Her body swung above the factory floor. For one horrifying instant, his grip began to fail. Hold on! I'm trying! You always say that when you're afraid. I am afraid. Mara's fingers slid against his. Below them, flames burst from a ruptured fuel line. The mill began to fill with smoke. Daniel saw the wedding ring still clutched in her other hand. Mara, let it go! She shook her head. It's the proof. Let it go! She released the ring. It dropped into the smoke. Daniel pulled her over the railing with everything left in his body. They collapsed together on the platform. Voss had disappeared. Victor stood below, trapped between burning machinery and the entrance. He looked up at Daniel. Help me! Daniel could have left him. For 3 months, Victor had watched him bury a woman who was not Mara. He had sat beside him at the funeral. He had brought coffee. He had hugged him while knowing his wife was alive. Daniel grabbed a chain from the railing and threw it down. Victor caught it. You owe me, Victor shouted. Daniel pulled him up. No, he said. I owe myself the man you tried to erase. Ortiz found Voss outside, trying to reach the black SUV. He had blood on his face and one hand clenched around a folded piece of paper. The ledger page. The paper had been hidden inside the wedding ring all along. A tiny compartment had opened when Mara dropped it, spilling the final proof onto the concrete. Voss was arrested before he reached the road. Victor was arrested too. Samuel Voss had stolen pension funds, arranged Evelyn Cole's murder, bribed Daniel's father, and used Victor to hide the evidence. The woman in the crash had been a witness Voss tried to silence. Mara had discovered the network and staged her own disappearance after realizing someone inside the police department was leaking information. She had sent the ring because she knew Daniel would recognize it. But she had not sent it herself. The package had been mailed by Evelyn Cole. She had survived the fire, lived under another name, and spent 12 years gathering proof. When she learned Mara was in danger, she followed the tracker hidden inside the ring. She had found Mara alive first, freed her briefly, and then died from injuries sustained during the escape. That was the woman whose voice had breathed through Daniel's phone on the night he received the ring. She had been trying to say his name. Not Mara's. His. Months after the arrests, Daniel visited Evelyn's grave with Mara beside him. The cemetery was quiet. Wind moved through the grass, carrying the smell of rain. Daniel took off the repaired wedding ring and held it between them. I thought it was proof that you were dead, he said. Mara touched the band. It was proof that I was still fighting. You should have trusted me. I should have. I was afraid if I told you everything, you'd remember too soon and run straight into the fire. I did that anyway. A small smile touched her face. You always did hate waiting. Daniel looked at her bruised cheek, the scar beneath her eye, and the hand that trembled whenever a car passed too quickly. Daniel slid the ring back onto Mara's finger. She closed her hand around his. You know, she whispered, when I left that night, I thought I was losing you. Daniel looked toward Evelyn's grave. Maybe we had to lose everything false before we could find what was real. Mara leaned against him. Behind them, the cemetery gate creaked open. A little girl entered with her mother, carrying flowers. She paused beside Evelyn's grave and placed down a white rose. Sometimes the dead leave behind a message. Sometimes that message is hidden in a photograph, a scar, a lie, or a ring someone thought would never be found. And sometimes the person you are mourning is not dead at all. Sometimes they are waiting for you to become brave enough to uncover the truth. The ring had not brought Daniel his wife back. It had brought him back to himself. And that was the life he had almost lost.